breaking glass, and I heard metal, and it sounded as if it was rushing across the floor. And suddenly the doors of the cath lab opened up and wind blew through them. Just as quickly as it had blown through them, it sucked all the air back out of the room. And all the glass and the metal that I had heard started rushing out of the room, and there was only a giant field of what looked like frozen wheat. And across that field of wheat, somebody was calling my name really loud. And then there was one last sound like a dentist makes, sucking the machine in your house out, and then everything was black. And in that blackness, I just felt a sense that I was rushing forward. And suddenly, up in the left-hand quadrant of the blackness, there were fireflies in a little tiny square. And the closer I got to it, the more fireflies there were, and the brighter it got, until it looked like an enormous picture frame. And I remember really clearly passing through that picture frame, and suddenly just being in incredibly blinding light, which I know that's a cliche that people say, but I'm only saying that this is what I clearly remember. And I was suddenly just drifting and felt incredible in this large space of white. And within that large space of white was a giant column. I mean, I can't even, the word giant isn't even appropriate.
It was a tube, a cylindrical thing that went from wherever down to up.
Enormous. It was, I mean, as big as this building. I'm just...
It was like a huge thing. Could you see the top of it?
No, it just...
You couldn't see the bottom?
The bottom. But on it were words. And the words started spiraling upward. And the words were shred the poems and set them free out across the western prairie so that wild birds can catch them in their beaks and make nests with words like please. And as it spun upward, the letters would reach somewhere, I don't know how high, and then they would fall off, and they were as big as myself, and they would drift down, and from the bottom, the phrase would start again, shred the poems and set them free. But increasingly, there were less and less words, till there was only one word, and that word was please. Please, please. Oh. And then I woke up. People immediately started asking me. The doctors and nurses were all describing it as a miracle and saying, did you see anything? We were very curious. So people, once that's the first thing I said when I told people what I'd seen. So people started coming from all over the hospital wanting writing down. So I had no idea where that came from. Well, except I did find out.
You did?
I did find out. So I went on a search for what that might have been, because I've always kept files and files of quotes, and I found it in a notebook that I wrote. My wife and I keep a little folder of what to do in case one of us dies, you know, that's what you do. And it was a piece that I wrote 8 years before. I don't even know where it was from, but I said this would be a good eulogy. I never remember writing that. I just wrote a note on it. Okay, wow. And then I did find it. It's from a song by Jennifer Lawrence, the singer-songwriter. She wrote music for Officer and the Gentleman who was a friend of Jim Coker's. Jim Coker's just died. She wrote music with him. So it's from a song that she wrote. She called me last November. And when I wrote the book, you have to ask for permission. And it was a Sunday morning. The phone just rang, and I never answered the phone on Sunday morning, particularly to weird numbers, you know.
Yeah.
And she said, "Hi, Fred. This is Jennifer Lawrence. And my record company sent me a book on your request, and of course you can use my words." She said, "Words don't belong to us. They're just out there for us to funny." And she said, I was talking to about that with Pete Seeger and Paul McCartney when I was writing that song. And my wife came by, and she said, and what a gracious, wonderful, and talented person she is. And, I can't tell you more about that experience except I left the hospital and I came home, and when I was able, I was in a walker for a while, and they didn't think that they told my family they didn't believe I would have brain function or physical function. I did lose the sight in my left eye from the violence of CPR for so long. And I have a cognitive issue with time. It's called time nausea. And tomorrow I'll remember all the details of talking to you and today. The woman that was just in here in the pictures, what she was wearing stuff, but it'll seem like it happened months ago, years ago, and pretty soon it'll account really well now. And it works out well. I've always been fascinated by what's happening here.
Yeah.
And if I'm pissed off at somebody, it's really good because the next day it was so long ago, I'm over it. So this has been an incredible opportunity for me to be alive and running again. And, life expectancy of someone goes through that. It's not usually very long,
but you're taking good care. We got problems.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, but you're taking. I noticed you eat the snacks you got over there. Were very healthy.
Well, yeah, and I run with our family's dog 4 or 5 times a week. I totally think that none of us are getting out of this universe.
Yeah.
And but some of us do get second chances, and I do feel a stewardship for that.
Yeah.
All the billions of people on Earth, you get to be alive, and there's no explanation for that. So it does feel like a responsibility to keep knocking on everybody's forehead every day, because everybody forgets. I mean, we all do that. You think, oh my God, I talked to Fred, my life's so great, I'm gonna go home and wallow in it today, and then tomorrow you'll spill the coffee grounds or drop your tea on the floor, or somebody jerks you around at work and you can't stand it, and all that kind of deal about us getting everything we can out of that day at art school or interviews or whatever we do. We're going to wallow in it.
Well, yeah,
forget.
I've come to, it's the relationships though really that make the days of real value to me. I mean, I'm not a perfect person or anything, but I mean, I really value the interconnections that I have with the people around me, because I know that they're the ones who keep me alive, and they're the ones who keep me from, because I'm a crazy person, and if I get off by myself too much, or I start thinking about what I got to get done today, and just forget about everybody else. I got school to go to and interviews to do, and you guys got to get out of my way. I'm a busy man, but I mean, all of that stuff's secondary to all my relationships.
Absolutely. That's a really incredible thing to hold in your mind and your heart every single day. This is what I've got. Not only what you've got is what somebody else might have, because you never are aware that other people you may not get another chance.
Right. That's the real tragedy, I think, about suicide, is that basically when a guy or a person, a woman, anybody commits suicide, they're saying to the universe and everybody around them, I got nothing else to give you. I'm done. I'm done giving you anything.
I've been so lucky because of near-death experiences, from a few suicide attempts, and then just being stupid otherwise, that I can't take for granted my life enough. Like, there's a lot of the things that I do today are because of the second chance that I was given. Like, I'm in Portland, and I'm a photographer, an artist.
Yeah.
Because
I
wasn't happy with my life.
Well, what a wonderful opportunity. I mean, and to realize that.
Yeah. Well, I'm at a point now where I'm realizing that a lot of my past pains and anguish, and I suffered a lot when I was a kid at the hands of my parents, and all that stuff sticks in you. And I've had my own suicidal tendencies, you know, and I'm realizing now that, you know, I use substances to try to kill the pain of life, because every day is just painful. There's tragedy in every day. You're losing a little bit of your life every single day, and if you grew up in a nasty household, or you know, with a mother who couldn't figure you out, or whatever it was, you know, you go through life with that kind of burden on top of yourself, you know, and until you are able to really come to terms with the feelings and the pain and the, you know, give yourself permission to say, hey, even though my mom didn't seem to like me, I'm still a good person, you know. That's not something that you just do overnight. That takes a long time, you know. And part of what happens to me is I'll start drinking or I'll smoke pot to try to kill the feelings, you know, to try not to have to deal with the pain of life, you know, and I don't know. It's kind of like killing yourself in a way, slowly. Like you're just numbing it, trying to get through the days without hurting too much, and that's not any way to live. That's not life, you know.
What I tried to write about, what the book actually became, was a catharsis about my own childhood. That's why I said, like, before, during, and after, because I did have a couple years to get better and to think about all the things that had impacted me, that had held me back. And that's an important thing, is to say the word people holding me back was my thoughts holding me back, giving me a chance. So it was a journey to write about my parents, who had certainly all their flaws, but you eventually come to realize that your parents' flaws and their inability to care for you, or their abuse of you, or their not wanting, or whatever, it isn't necessarily about you at all.
Right.
It's the baggage that they haul forward, that you just happen to end up in the play. I mean, I don't know how you felt when you were a kid, but I used to look around and think, well, God, I've been cast in the wrong play.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like, well, what is this? But you do live long enough, and it's good to meet other people and say, wow, well, this person went through this or this, and that's why I said, we all have stories in our heart. That I shared mine, you have a story. You have to let that story become the next chapter of who you are.
Exactly.
And you get to decide how your book's going to look at the end. And there aren't any parents there anymore. Or sometimes we got parents knocking on our door saying, here, here, here. But, you know, as an adult, you have the ability to draw lines and say, I remember my stepfather one day coming to the house, and I had my own kids then, and I said, you know, I went through this as a child, and I think I'm all done with that for my kids. And so this is the way things will be. That was a little turning point. When my mother was dying, and on an oxygen machine, I said, she was dependent upon me eating to eat. And I said, you know, we've had everything kind of wrong here. I mean, I'm now still the parent, and you won't even eat unless I'm here. Could we switch roles? Which was a very difficult thing to say to a dying parent.
Yeah.
And in that meeting, I was able to tell her all the things that had been in my heart always. In the last 6 months of our life, we had the best relationship of our lives because of the peace of that.
Yeah.
And her actually saying she was sorry for us. We don't often get to do that, but you have to take all the steps you can to let go of that bag. Because they're just in big duffel bags that we haul around like rocks. I mean, you know, you try to get up an escalator or get in here and do an interview or be a photographer or a painter or whatever you want to do. If you're hauling around little duffel bags full of nasty boulders, I mean, you just do yourself in. I'm so grateful for my life. It just really is. And I'm grateful for all the things that I thought were not so good. I wouldn't have had anything to write about or paint about sometimes. You don't have some kind of depth.
Oh, I definitely think, yeah, I definitely think all the
into
crap we go through, it makes us
Absolutely.
much better artists
Absolutely.
in the long run, you know. I gotta go feed my meter. Do you, do you want to do the fourth and Friday?
So after,
Do I need to keep it out?
Can we shut it off for a second? Or?
yeah, we can shut it off for a second.
I'm sorry.
We'll be right back.